With that, Chair sees a quorum. All right, we have Public Safety Day and then Department of Health. We're going to roll through these. If you make sure you're ready with your questions, hit your mic, and we'll do those, as we come along. If you can, try to keep your questions to appropriations. I understand there's some other issues there, but at this point, we're not really talking about one-time money. Again, we'll allow some latitude, but let's try to keep it to appropriations. With that, Dalton, you are recognized to present C.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'll turn with me to page 263 of your manuals, we'll go ahead and look at Department of Public Safety Administration and Shared Services Division Summary. So I mentioned this on Wednesday. There were 3 appropriations that moved from Department of Corrections to Public Safety. That's Criminal Detention Facility Review, Criminal Detention Committee expenses, and Transportation of Juvenile Offenders. Those appropriations haven't changed, but they have moved to Department of Public Safety, so they're now under their umbrella. Happy to take any of those questions later. And then we have one appropriation that moved out, and that's Fire Prevention Commission grants. That's on page 280 of your manuals. That moved to Department of Emergency Management. We'll talk about that when we get there. I'd like to touch on the operations budget for Administration and Shared Service, or the cabinet level appropriation rather. That's on page 284 of your manuals. The total there is $8,594,738. But Mr. Chair, there are no change levels to that or any of the appropriations that moved in or remaining appropriations. So I'll be happy to take any questions.
Representative Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for the agency, and then I'll have a motion at the proper time.
Okay. If you could go ahead and ask your question, then whoever appropriately needs to respond and identify yourself for the question.
Thank you. This is going to be, and it's one we discussed already, which is on 274, which is a Public Safety Equipment Grant Program. I just want to make sure we're still all in agreement that that's one that can be reduced. It's on page 274, Karen.
I'm Karen Perry, Chief Fiscal Officer, Department of Public Safety. Yes, Representative, we can reduce the appropriation to $10 million.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll have a motion at the proper time, Mr. Chair.
Members, do we have any other questions? And I guess I should ask, would y'all like to make any statements, or are you good to go just answering questions?
I do have a brief opening statement.
Okay.
I'll try to keep it brief, I promise.
Yes, sir.
I put it in writing because most of the members know by now that I suffer from ADD, and I'll get all over the place if I don't. So just want to start. First of all, I'm Mike Hager. I'm Secretary, Department of Public Safety and Director of State Police. Just want to start by thanking this body and our Governor's Office for the support you've shown, not just through your words, but through your actions. Our mission is simple, and I'm proud to report that because of the resources you've given us, the state of Arkansas is safer today. I'll go through a quick overview of each agency and then make our directors and staff available for your questions. For the state police, just to give you an idea, kind of an overview of where we were versus where we are today. In 2000, we had 608 troopers with a population of 2.6 million citizens. That worked out to where we had 1 trooper for every 4,276 citizens. When this administration took office in 2003, we only had 490 troopers with a population of 3.1 million citizens. That put us at 1 trooper per every 6,326 members of our state. With your support, we've hired close to 100 troopers this year, and we now have that ratio down to 1 trooper per every 5,381 citizens. These are just numbers, but it translates to the services that we can give to our citizens and local law enforcement partners, many of which are very reliant on ASP to support their law enforcement mission. We provide support through patrol, criminal investigations of major crimes, tactical operations, aircraft services, etc. We're not just writing speeding tickets and working car crashes. We provide every aspect of law enforcement services that many of our local partners depend on. Many of the districts that this body represents, they understand the necessity of state police to support them. It's actually a statutory responsibility of our agency to provide that support. Just want to give a few tangible examples of what we've done with the support that this body has given us over the last year. ASP has made more than 4,000 criminal arrests more in 2023 than we did the year before. Our vehicle crashes were reduced by more than 1,000, with 36 fewer fatalities. Just in the drug enforcement arena, this past year, we've confiscated and seized over 10,386 pounds of marijuana. That's up from 8,000 pounds, almost 2,000 pounds more in the same time period in 2022. We've seized 354 pounds of cocaine. That's up 144 pounds since the last year. We've also seized 57 pounds of methamphetamines, 1 pound of heroin, and 47 pounds of fentanyl. And everybody knows the crisis that we're suffering right now in this country. And you can do the math on what 47 pounds would do to our population as well as the population of the country. We've also seized $1.4 million in the last fiscal year, or I'm sorry, in the last calendar year. That's up just under $1 million in the same time period in 2022. I want to take a second to recognize our Chief of Staff, Hugh Finkelstein. As you know, I wear two hats as the Secretary of Department of Public Safety, but also Director of State Police. And to say that I'm reliant on Hugh, who's the quarterback for Department of Public Safety, that can't be overstated, how much that we rely on him and how much we appreciate him, as well as the directors of the shared services, or CFO, or CHRO, I think that's the way you say it. All of the people that support us, can't say enough for them and what they do for us. And you'll see shortly when you start asking questions how much we rely on them to provide that information to you guys. Just real quick, the other agencies, ACIC, and we've got $250,000 earmarked for a message switch platform upgrade. That all of the directors will be here to answer any questions you have about that. They can't say enough about ACIC and what they do behind the scenes. Anyone that's ever worked in the criminal justice arena knows that they're the silent partner behind the scenes. We're so reliant on what the services they provide for us, and not just us, but the courts and through several different levels. Our Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, we have a completely enhanced and new level of oversight thanks to Director Chapman. We've cleared a backlog of pending decertification proceedings, which are basically keeping bad cops out of law enforcement, and that is such a critical necessity this day and age. We've opened a new Central Arkansas Law Enforcement Academy in Benton. We're drawing students from agencies that we didn't serve before because they have a renewed faith in our department to provide that training for them. We have $21 million in ARPA funds to upgrade the Camden and Springdale facilities. For the crime lab, we have a new facility that we're currently in the process of the construction process to get the money allocated, or the money spent that this body gave us, the $200 million appropriations for the new state crime lab. We made an offer earlier this week on a piece of land. They've met with the architectural firm. They're in the process of doing the design and review phase. We've recently completed a 3-day programming session with WER and MWL architect firms. $350,000 from the Attorney General's office was provided for cadaver transportation improvements. This body knows that through legislation that you gave, we've been able to increase the process to reimburse, or basically provide the financial needs necessary to where we can transfer or transport suspected overdose cases, and then also that gives us the opportunity to prosecute those cases, which is part of Arkansas Protects through the Death by Delivery Act. We've had an increase in autopsies as a result of the opioid legislation. In 2023, the medical examiner section completed a record number of autopsies of 1,868, which was approximately 200 more than autopsies performed in 2022. The crime lab received approval by the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education to offer a 1-year forensic pathology fellowship program in partnership with the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. That's a huge step for us. The medical examiner section was recognized by the Arkansas Regional Organ Recovery Agency with the Aurora Donation Champion Award for the work they've done in saving and restoring lives. During the past 15 years, 681 lives have been saved and 758 organs have been recovered through a partnership between our DPS partners and the Aurora team. Due to our team's commitment and support of the Arkansas Governor's Office and Arkansas Attorney General's Office, the backlog of sexual assault kits submitted for testing has significantly decreased. Our team remains focused on meeting a 60-day turnaround time by 2025. For Arkansas Department of Emergency Management, they've managed numerous natural disasters. They continue to work through that process. They've added the Fire Marshal's Office and are working through the transition of those services fiscally and operationally. Our Crime Victims Reparations Board, we now have a new director, Lisa Yang. She's dug in. She's already made significant strides to work through the backlog. She's cross-trained each employee to be able to properly investigate the different claims. This new approach is already paying off. They're short in manpower right now, as all of our departments are, but they're making great progress in that arena. So with that, I will close and we'll open it up for any questions the body may have.
All right, thank you, and I appreciate that presentation. Senator Gilmore.
Well, I don't know if this is the appropriate time. I was going to ask a question about the crime lab.
Okay, yeah, that'll be up next.
Thank you.
And then, let's see, Representative Kavanaugh, you have a motion, right? No questions? Okay, I'll come to you in just a second then. All right, Senator Hammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think this is the right place. On page 272 in our budget manual, you've got appropriated $187,000 for juvenile transportation of juvenile offenders. Is that in your bill?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I notice it's money that we haven't had there before. If I'm reading the book right, it's new money. Can you explain what you anticipate doing with that and why you would need to request that?
Well, it was transferred from Department of Correction, and it is money that we reimburse to agencies that transport juveniles. And up until this point, we haven't had any reimbursement requests, but there is one agency, Baxter County, that said they were going to submit a request.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Representative Kavanaugh, you're recognized for motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to accept executive rec with the exception on public safety equipment grant to reduce that to $10 million from the $40 million, and that is on page 274, appropriation E98.
Okay. All right, thank you. Members, you've heard the motion. Senator Hammer, you got a question or discussion on the motion? Okay. Okay. We've got a motion to adopt with the and to reduce the public safety grant program appropriation of $10 million. We've got a motion. We've got a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Senator Hammer, you're recognized for discussion on the motion.
Thank you. And could the chair clarify, is this the $10 million that's floating around out there that we've talked about as far as equipment grants for various police agencies to apply for? Is that a different amount?
Yeah, this went through two cycles. I think it originally had a lower appropriation, and that was exhausted really quickly through a restricted reserve transfer. And then we upped that to a $10 million transfer the last cycle because it was popular. Of course, at this point, we don't know if there will be additional monies allocated through that. It's something we'll probably determine when we're in session. But as far as ongoing money, in the governor's balanced budget, that's not part of it. It's always been funded through one-time money. But it was the appropriation rate level was set at $40 million. They're not utilizing $40 million, and an agreement was to go ahead and reduce that to $10 million, which would hopefully be a little bit more close to what's realistic.
All right. So the appropriation level that, based on this motion, the appropriation level that would remain would be $10 million.
$10 million.
So that if we come back and fund it later, that gives us what historically has been spent. Is that right?
Well, there's been two tranches. I don't remember what the original was, but it was not $10 million. I think the second round is what bumped it on up.
Six or something. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. But yeah, so up to 10. All right. Is this Senator Murdoch? Discussion on the motion?
It's Senator Love. We're both black, but I look better.
Well, for whatever reason, this computer screen up here doesn't.
No. I'm sitting in this chair. No, Mr. Chair, I just, in light of the conversation, I just want to know if the reduction of this appropriation is going to impact it negatively the performance of the agency in any way.
I don't believe so.
Here, I'm going to
Okay, I'll try that. I don't believe so, sir. We've never had more than $10 million that was put into that account. I'm not sure what the thought process was on the $40 million appropriation, but it was We've never had more than 10 million. We don't suspect that we will, but that's the number that we're working on to provide those services to the local agencies. And so I don't think it will have any negative impact.
Okay, just want to know. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Senator Flowers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So those funds in the grant program, what is the source?
The source is has historically been a restricted reserve transfer. So initiated by the governor through a governor's letter and approved by us in ALC.
So is that from general revenue?
Surplus general revenue that was then swept over into restricted reserve account.
Okay, and then I wanted to know how many grants average being awarded since the program has been in existence?
According to...
And about the size of the grants.
Karen King, she has those numbers in front of her. There have been numerous. They've always been limited to $100,000 per request. This past year, we limited those to $50,000 because that fund had been depleted, and we wanted to be able to provide as many grants to the local agencies as possible. So it's somewhere between $100,000 and $50,000 per grant that has been awarded. And I don't know if Karen has more specific numbers that she could give you.
I don't have the exact numbers, but I mean, it's a lot. A lot of agencies applied for it, and a lot of agencies received the money. I can give the exact count later.
So when it's applied for detention centers, does that help with the facility itself, maybe maintenance, improvements, or does it help in terms of the budget that they're having to set for and get reimbursed for housing state inmates?
Well, these are grants that's one-time funding to agencies, and I don't think they've gone to the detention centers. That's something totally different.
Well, in the analysis, it says grant awards under the program to law enforcement agencies, detention centers, and corrections agencies for equipment that aids in improving trust and relationships. So, I mean...
Ma'am, my understanding from talking to our partners with the Sheriff's Association, the Chiefs of Police Association, the majority of these grants are one-time funding opportunities for them to purchase equipment that they would otherwise not be able to purchase. It's specified that it has to be less lethal. It's specified that it needs to focus on issues of transparency, such as body cameras, dash cameras, things like that. But what it does is it frees their budget up to where instead of them trying to find those funds to pay for issues or pay for items like that they need, they can then divert their resources, sometimes which are very limited. They can divert those resources to other places, and that includes, of course, their detention facilities and things like that. And again, we'd have to look through the spreadsheet to see if any of the grants have specifically gone to detention centers or, in that arena. But it, more than anything else, it just frees their budgets up to where they can put that money elsewhere.
I'd like to see a list of the grants that have been awarded to what counties. I'm quite interested in what, if any, grant has been awarded Jefferson County.
Jefferson County, okay. Yes, ma'am, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, if you could get us just a full list and then send it to staff, and they can send it out of what's been awarded out of the, this fund to date. Looks like about $7 million in 22, 23. And so I think that'd be helpful, just to be, for curiosity's sake, what's happening.
Yes, sir. We have, it's several pages, but we can easily provide that. So,
yeah, thank you. All right, Senator Hammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the motion for just the reduction of the appropriation, or are we about to make a motion to adopt their proposed budget?
We're in this particular section, we'll make a motion the motion is motion to adopt, and then also reduce that appropriation, the public safety grant appropriation, from 40 million to 10.
I have a question on the juvenile transportation. So can I ask it now?
Is this what is this 272?
Yes.
Yeah, that you were asking about? Yes.
That's okay.
Yep.
On the transportation, you said this money is being allocated in order to help offset the transport of juveniles, and you mentioned one county in particular. Is this to the JDC centers, or where's the transportation taking place from and to?
They are transporting them from the center to doctor's office, court hearings.
Is that not a cost that's normally covered by the county that is hosting the JDC?
Yes, but they can seek reimbursement for the salary of the person that's transporting them, but it's limited to $11. When we got the program, the reimbursement rate was $6.85 an hour per employee, and we revamped the rules and upped it to $11. We wasn't sure how much interest we would get with $11 and didn't want to run the program dry.
Okay, and I'm certainly not opposed to the idea. It's just that traditionally the counties have absorbed the cost of operating the JDC, and are we opening up the door to something new? And this will be available to all counties that have JDCs, not just the one that was mentioned a while ago?
Correct. It's my understanding that the juvenile facilities went down from 9 facilities to 6, so we don't have much interest in the program.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to get that on the record as clarification that the other counties will be able to apply for it also, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and we did some latitude there. Next time we'll just have discussion when we get to the point and the motion's already been made and the second's been, confirmed. But I understand where we are this morning and wanted to catch up a little bit. But we want everybody to be able to have their questions. Let's just do that in the appropriate time because I don't want to get too far out of whack. All right, with that, members, we've got a motion, we've got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. We're going to move on to Public Safety Department of Crime Information Center. And you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see. Did you say Crime Information Center? Okay, thank you. All right, so the Crime Information Center department summary can be found on page 290 of your manual. Total for this division is $8,334,898 for fiscal year 25 as recommended. There are no significant change levels to this appropriation, but I will go over the operations budget real quick. That's on page 292 of your manuals, and the total there is $7,140,834. Sorry. If there are any particular questions about that one or any other appropriations within our Crime Information Center, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you. Representative Rose.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Page 294, there's the information about the sex child offender registration. I was just curious if you could elaborate on the budget there and just kind of the program in and of itself.
I'm sorry. I'm Jeff Long. I'm the director of the Arkansas Crime Information Center. As far as on the sex registry, we're in the process right now of upgrading the system. It's been out of date. It's, I think, about 10 years old. We're in the process of updating it. We're doing a contract through Mainstream in Little Rock, Arkansas. We're using SOAR grants, SMART grants to upgrade that system. We're hoping to have the new system out into the field by middle of May. It's been pushed back a little bit. We're already looking at things we have to add to the new system. The biggest problem we're having right now with these systems is we have to hire all this contract out, and a lot of times it's just taking quite a while to get one out, and before we actually get it rolling, we already know updates that we need to add into because of legislation changes.
Follow up, Mr. Chair. Could you give me a couple of details on the changes, the improvements?
I'm going to bring up actually Lisa Winston. She's over that section and she's one of the deputy directors, and she will give you more information because she's the one who operates the system.
Thank you. And when you do, I just was curious the biggest differences from, say, 2 years ago, last year, and then maybe moving forward. I'm just looking at the budgets, and I understand you're saying funding's coming from a couple different places, but I was interested to know what progress we're making in that area.
Hi, I'm Lisa Winston. I'm the director of Special Services, which is criminal history and sex offender. What we're doing is updating our system. Our system was real old, and they had the new vendors are making it to where we're able to access and make any changes as needed versus having a vendor do it all the time. What is being updated is the software that allows us to put more offenders in and kind of register the victim's information to where if the victim needs some information, we don't give out addresses or anything like that, but we can assist them better.
Final question. Did I understand correctly? You said to get more offenders into the system. Does that mean that there were offenders that were simply just not getting in?
No, we have a program that we're trying to, I'm going to say, enlist as far as having information for the victims, having information, it's kind of like Vine. We're having to put that program together to where right now we don't enter sex offenders, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous, 1s and 2. And we're just trying to have that as another database to have them entered. So if there is an issue, we can easily go back and look at those.
Thank you. You did a great job. Just appreciate the information, the update, something I think the state needs to obviously focus on. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, seeing none, what's the will of the committee? We've got a motion to adopt executive rec. We've got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Public Safety Department Crime Laboratory.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll move to page 303 of your manuals. That's where you'll find the Crime Lab Division Summary. So the total here for the Crime Lab for fiscal year 25 is $21,563,041. Let's see. On page 309, you can go to the state operations appropriation. Total here is $14,837,650. There are no change levels in this appropriation. There are a couple ones that look a little different. They got added last session by, I believe it's, well, I'm not sure actually of the bill, but it was a member bill by Senator Letting and Representative Wing that added the Rapid ID Jump Start Package and the Rapid DNA Technology appropriation. Those can be found on page 315 and 317, respectively. Mr. Chairman, there are no significant changes to the fiscal year 25 recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Senator Hester.
Is this the right time to ask questions about the crime lab?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I got really two different things I want to ask about. So this comes up every time. What is our status on our sexual assault kits? How far back are we on testing?
Yes, hi, my name is Ted Brown. I'm the Director and Chief Medical Examiner of the Crime Lab, and I'm going to ask one of my Deputy Directors, Jennifer Beatty-West, to come give you an update on that. So, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown, and welcome. I think this is the first time we've had you before us, so. If you could just recognize yourself with the committee, and if he needs to, just let him know to restate the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Jennifer Beatty-West, and I am the Deputy Director of Scientific Operations. I also just recently was in DNA casework as a supervisor with the sexual assault kits.
So the question is, what is the backlog?
Yes, sir. So we are right now at about a 90-day turnaround time with our sexual assault kits, which is a significant decrease in turnaround time from this time last year where we were about 8 months out. Right now we have about 130 unassigned sexual assault kits. This time last year we were about 600 unassigned sexual assault kits. So we are very proud of the progress we have made through our partnerships with the Attorney General's office, with the support of our legislators, and with the support of the governor's office.
Yeah, no, that is great progress and really great to hear. I mean, this question's been getting asked for a decade. Did you just find money, or you just prioritized? What are we doing to get it better, and can we get from 90 days to a month?
Yes, sir. And these are great questions. So, one, staffing. The governor's office provided us additional staffing in the DNA unit. And we are in the final stages of training those analysts. It takes about a year to train a DNA analyst, and so we have invested a lot of time in training our staff, and we will finish the last 2 analysts that were provided to us, those positions that were provided to us, about August of this year. We have just signed off 5 additional DNA analysts in the past 3 months. So our DNA section is going to be in a really great area as long as we're able to maintain those staff.
Thank you. And I guess I would finish by saying I hope the mood is getting good because they know we're committed to a new facility. Can anyone give us any updates on the new facility? Or is there any chance to have an opening in 24, or is it a 25 opening? What are we looking at?
Senator Hester, I wish we could move in 2024. No, I'm so thankful for all of you for your continued support of us at the Crime Lab. This is a game changer for us, and I'm so blessed to partner with all of you so that way we can best serve Arkansas moving forward. I'll tell you right now, we just recently completed, as of about a week ago, our second 3-day programming session where we really focused on detailed space programming for our new building. So what does that mean? It was focused on staff, the functional flow of the building, patterns, adjacencies, personnel and evidence flow, equipment needs now and in the future, security and safety, lab accreditation factors, and ensuring we are best positioned to exceed the expectations of those that we're blessed to serve. Together, we have completed a first draft of our program needs. We want our building to ensure that we are well positioned to serve our stakeholders for years to come, decades to come. Preliminary findings have identified that we need approximately 180,000 square foot building, which places us well within the national data, the national statistics of what we need based on the size of our team to best serve Arkansas. As Colonel Hager said, we have identified the land that we would like to build our new Arkansas State Crime Laboratory. And once an agreement has been reached, hopefully very soon, our next step is to work with our architects in what's called a block and stack phase of our new building, where we're focused on best positioning the spaces within the laboratory and on our land so that we can maximize efficiencies and, of course, best serve Arkansans. In addition, we are currently working alongside our partners with the Division of Building Authority, and I appreciate their continued partnership following a request for proposal for pre-construction services and construction to select a general contractor. So we're in that, we're about to start that phase to help us deliver this new crime lab. So a long-winded answer there, but Senator Hester, know that we're committed, our entire team is committed. We are so thankful for your continued support for us because we are excited to continue our commitment in our service. So thank you.
Thank you for that, and it's really great feedback. And I guess I had one more question I forgot to ask earlier. If we're at 90 days on the assault kits, do you have any idea where that stacks us up amongst the rest of the country? I mean, I've read some really horrifying stories on that. Are we near the best at that, or do you have any idea?
No, sir, I don't really know where we compare across the nation. One of the things multiple laboratories are struggling with backlog and turnaround time. It's a push that every kit collected is a kit tested, and we've been very fortunate, again, with the support of our partners, to help us deal with getting these kits in and getting those kits tested. Hopefully we can be the leader in the nation, and that's kind of what the goal I think is that with our efficiency, with the staffing, that we're able to maintain the 60-day turnaround time and help show other labs how to do it and how to do it well.
Thank you.
Senator Mark Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Dr. Brown, thank you for your response to Senator Hester's question, which was pretty similar to what I was going to ask, but I kind of do it as a follow-up more. The update on the facility is important, but I know that this is not just a shell building with some desks. You have a lot of expensive equipment that you will be adding, and I want to make sure that we are pointing in the right direction, both in money and in time, to get you what you need to do your job more efficiently. My real question that he didn't quite get into, and your answer to him was great on the other part. But unlike some services that government provides to our people, Colonel Hager's got some great state troopers out there, but then there's always local police and sheriff's office that can do some of that. We just got one crime lab, and it's critical that it has what it needs and functions. And my question's about the personnel. I have a friend who has worked with you in the past, and it kind of told me how the operation is, and I realized that if someone is a very qualified chemist, they don't show up at your doorstep ready to do all of the work that your needs require. And there's a learning curve, and then we've seen this in other areas of government where somebody gets good and either private sector or even another governmental agency hires them away. Do y'all have a plan in place to either come back to us and say, look, we need to pay these people in these positions 110% or 120% of what we've been paying in the past just to remain competitive, not just because they're harder to get, but because of the learning curve for the job? Is there a plan in place to address this? I'm trying to look long term so we can anticipate needs and properly respond to your needs. And Colonel, jump in there as well, and Dr. Brown.
Senator, we do have a plan in place that we are going to bring to you soon.
I'll be patient.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Gilmore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colonel, thank you, and Doctor and staff, thank you for being here. Just following up on the questions earlier regarding the sexual assault kits, I don't think it's any secret that that's sort of been a priority of this legislature in reducing that backlog, so I appreciate the efforts on that. I guess as just a way to be more specific, do we anticipate with the new crime lab that that'll even come down a little bit further in reducing that backlog and perhaps any other backlogs and making us more efficient? Are we anticipating that? I just want to sort of ask that question directly to see what that answer is.
Senator Gilmore, thank you for that question. And to answer your question, yes. And we plan to meet our goal of the 60-day turnaround time at the beginning. Our goal is by 2025. And that would be, unfortunately, going back to Senator Hester's questions, before we move into our new building. But again, to answer your question, because of our team, because of the people in our crime lab who are dedicated to improving the turnaround time for the people that need these results, the goal is to have our sexual assault turnaround kit or result turnaround time less than 60 days by 2025.
Yeah, thank you. And just for the members, if I might just take some personal privilege on this, if you haven't seen the current crime lab and understand what you're dealing with, it's hard to understand maybe why the backlogs exist. And that was why we pushed so hard to get this new crime lab built and money set aside for that, because what you've been dealing with is just hard to believe. So thank you for your efforts, and thanks for stepping up and getting this resolved. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, General Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And hey, Director, good to see you. So how's your medical examiner manning? And the other part of the question would be your turnaround time on autopsies. Do you have an average time that it takes to get a body in and back to their loved ones?
Yes, thank you for that question. So due to the increase of autopsies that are coming our way, and the reason why they're increasing is because it's my vision that we bring Arkansas to the national level. As far as when somebody dies of a sudden, unexpected, violent death, we know what autopsies must be performed. And so now we're making that happen here in the state of Arkansas. And I'm so proud to be able to partner with all of you, our team at the Crime Lab, to deliver these results, to provide this information that is so critical for, of course, not only the families who are experiencing the worst day of their life, but also for all the other stakeholders, law enforcement, prosecutors, defense attorneys, all those stakeholders, public health officials that rely on our findings to deeply understand how and why people are dying here in Arkansas. And so with that anticipated increase of numbers of autopsies that we're performing, similar to what Karen said earlier about making sure that we are attracting and retaining exceptional scientists, forensic pathologists, and techs within the crime lab. We will be coming to you for additional support for our team, including additional positions to best position us to continue to provide excellent medical legal autopsy services to our state.
Okay, thank you, Director. And one last, so are you at 100% on your manning authorizations for your medical examiners?
Can you say that one more time?
Do you have all the medical examiners that you're authorized?
Right now, we are fully staffed with the number of allocated forensic pathologists, but based on the increasing numbers of autopsies, we'll have a proposal before all of you very soon to make a request for additional forensic pathologists based on the needs, again, so that we're best positioned to perform the autopsies and, importantly, get our results back to those who need those results in a timely fashion, which per national standards is within 90 days.
That's great. We're not used to seeing a lot of forward-looking strategic planning, so I appreciate you looking into that, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Collins.
Thank you. Over here to your right. My question's about the site. So you said you had a site picked out. Can you tell me where the site is, what the relative benefits are of it, and what the cost, if you're going to be acquiring the land, is going to be?
There we go. Our Chief of Staff, Hugh, may need to come forward to answer any more specific questions, but the site is on North Shore Drive. It's approximately, is it 18 acres, I believe?
18, 19 acres, yes.
And it butts up to other state property. And the property is level, it's cleared, it's ready to build, and it allows us room to not only provide the services that we need now, but also forward-looking, as Dr. Brown said, that we hope that this will be a site that we can build on that will allow us room for growth to where this will be a many decades facility, not just a facility to satisfy the short-term need. So that offer was made this past week, and Hugh may be able to give any more specific details on that.
Hugh Finkelstein, Chief of Staff for Department of Public Safety. Representative Collins, it was the property is directly east of E&E. I was going to say ADEQ, but that's outdated. And it was an offer was made for $4.095 million, which was the appraised value from, I believe it was Forrest and Associates. One of the major parts of this is that that land is absolutely ready to build as we speak. There'd have to be probably 1 foot of ground that would have to be raised, and I think that would have to be anywhere in that area. We have updated floodplain documentation that shows that it's, I think, 0.2% of a risk in the floodplain. The big draw on this, in talking to people at E&E, is that they're anticipating that they're running out of room. So co-locating with another state agency, building or allowing them to build on our land so that they have room for their employees to be housed in the future is one of the major benefits of that land as far as use by the state. I believe it's 19 acres is the amount that is the purchase.
Okay, so I guess I would kind of wonder, are there any other comparable sized properties in that area that would offer you 19 or so acres, and are they looking at about $4 million also?
There are 2 other areas in North Shore. One is off of Young Drive, and that is approximately 16 acres. It's owned by the city of North Little Rock. We had WER, the architects, do a cost-benefit analysis. There were significant problems with that property. If you want me to go into detail about that, there's a bayou that runs through it, which is a conservation issue, or conservation. It is deemed conservation, so we couldn't use part of that. When we looked at the city of North Little Rock is going to be requiring a road to go through part of that as well. The acreage that we would end up with was approximately 8.5 acres of usable land in that, because the way it was shaped, it's kind of like a U. Part of it would be we'd have to construct a road into it. And the other issue with that is that utilities are not readily available. We'd have to pay to have those brought in.
I understand, and I'll get out of the queue. Just one more question. So what were they asking on that, or what was that appraised for, if you have that?
We don't have the appraisal. What they were asking is 1.6 million. And then based on the cost study analysis, it would have been approximately $100,000 more per usable square foot in that area than in the North Shore area.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Seat 34. I apologize, I'm not sure where that is.
That's okay. I'm over here. I just had a quick question on the rape kits.
Yes, ma'am.
This is just more informational. From what time all the backlog of rape kits that have been caught up, have those been entered into the DNA registry, or are we still waiting to do that with the registry that's coming up?
I'm sorry, with the registry, do you mean the DNA database?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. So as we process these cases, and if we obtain a profile, a DNA profile, that does qualify to go into this DNA database, it is entered immediately.
It is entered immediately?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, and all the backlogs have been entered as well?
Yes, ma'am. So as part of the partnerships to help reduce our sexual assault kit, we did receive funding to outsource sexual assault kits to our vendor laboratories. And with that, we sent a significant number of rape kits to our vendor laboratories. We have received those back. Those are immediately reviewed, and those profiles are entered into the KETS database if there are eligible profiles.
Okay. What qualifies as an eligible profile?
It has to be a foreign DNA profile, meaning it doesn't match the victim's DNA. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the new registry that's coming online that's not yet online, the one that Senator Letting and Carlton Wing ran, where you test the perpetrator or the potential perpetrator at the...
Oh, yes, ma'am.
When
Rapid
will those
DNA
two be crossed or added?
No, ma'am. At this time, the rapid DNA system is going to only be utilized, from what I understand, by our jails to go ahead and collect the offender arrestee sample at that time.
Okay, so it's really two different registrations?
Yes, ma'am. So they both will feed. So the rapid DNA will feed into our overall DNA database.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Senator Stubblefield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hager, are we seeing an overall drop in the crimes in the state of Arkansas?
Senator, thank you for the question. That would, honestly, I don't know the answer to that. That would be something that our research and development team could try to present to you.
You keep stats on that, correct?
I'm sorry?
You keep statistics on that?
Yes, sir. There are statistics that are kept nationally, and it's broken down by state. And our research team does keep tabs on that, but honestly, I could try to provide that information to you overall. If there's a specific crime that you want us to look at to provide that data.
I would like just to get an overall number of all crimes committed in the state of Arkansas, because we were told last night that crimes overall in the United States are down, but I would like to see where we are, particularly in the state of Arkansas.
Yes, sir. I also watched that and was very interested in that statement as well, because that's, from my personal perspective, I would have a hard time believing that data would support that statement.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The improved Senator Murdoch. Kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In talking about the rape kits, I know that we've been talking about the backlog and the backlog clearing up, but do rape kits have an expiration date on them? I mean, like when you collect that information, Does the kit expire at any time? I mean, like,
From what I understand, no, sir, it won't. So there are times that we have suspectless sexual assaults, and even if we're able to obtain a foreign profile on that sexual assault, and by that a probative profile that may lead to the perpetrator, we house that profile in the CODIS database. If there's not an immediate match to an offender or an arrestee or another case, it will stay in that database indefinitely.
Okay.
So until either a match occurs or it just continues to search there. Is that what you were asking?
yeah, because
Yes,
I just wanted to know, did we discard any rape kits? We didn't do anything like that. We're logging them all.
Yes, sir, that's correct. That is correct. And after the update to the law last year, the crime lab has been receiving even the anonymous kits in which the person at the time doesn't want to file a police report, but to help preserve that kit and ensure that information is protected in case they ever do decide to move forward with filing a police report, we will have that so we can help that person with their case.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yes,
what
sir.
I needed to know.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Chesterfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Secretary Hager, is the overall crime rate in the state of Arkansas up or down?
Ma'am, honestly, I couldn't answer that right now. I would have to get with our research team and ask them to provide that information. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Thank you. One of the things that has been of concern to me is in the crime lab, we've had some difficulty securing qualified individuals to help us do what we need to do. Are we still having some difficulty in that area? Or are you at full capacity as far as staffing is concerned?
Thank you, Senator. In general, right now, we do have a handful of positions open.
What is a handful? I'm conversant with 1, 2, and 3, but handful is what, 5, 6? How do we define that?
I think good. Okay. Thanks to my deputy director, we have 2 open positions currently at the crime lab.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but going back to Senator Hester's, I believe it was Senator Hester's question of continuing to attract, recruit, and retain really qualified individuals that so many of Arkansans rely on. That's something that is on our mind at the crime lab, and we're so fortunate to partner with Karen, Colonel Hager, and Hugh, and others with DPS, Philip Warner, to work with them to propose a plan to continue to allow us to attract the very best forensic scientists.
Do you think that the reason is money? That we're having a challenge? Are we competitive with our surrounding states, for instance, as far as salaries are concerned? Or have you done any research on that?
Thanks for that question. Yes, we have done a regional study. We have reached out to multiple crime labs, not only within our region, but throughout the country. Thanks to the leadership of Sammy Williams, my other deputy director at the crime lab. He spent a considerable amount of time reaching out to other crime labs to understand what is the pay scale there, and how do we compete with them, or how can we better compete with them. And so soon, as Karen alluded to earlier, we anticipate coming before all of you and presenting that detailed information, and to ask for your support, because in my opinion there is opportunities for us to improve and better attract excellent forensic scientists.
Right. And allow me to ask this. How do we rank? If we looked at Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Missouri, how do we rank as far as salary is concerned?
Yes, I'm going to ask Sammy Williams to come up here. He'll best be able to answer that question for you,
Thank you
Senator.
so very much.
Hi, Sammy Williams, Deputy Director of Administrative Operations at the Crime Lab. Grateful to be here today. Especially in the region, We are unfortunately one of the lowest states in starting pay. I believe that Mississippi is the only state.
We're saying thank God for Mississippi again.
Behind us. One of the main issues that we developed is growth for employees. And that was where we really saw a great disconnect between our lab and other labs is a career path forward in the future. And so our maximum salaries were considerably lower than.
What is our max? And what is our minimum?
I believe our minimum, this is for a forensic scientist, is somewhere in the range of 45,000. Karen may have this actual information here.
$45,000.
Sorry, here it is. Thank you, Philip. Our current starting minimum salary is $45,000, and the maximum there is $65,000.
And this is for forensic scientists?
That's correct, yes.
Get out of town. Thank you. Thank you. I think we are going to have some problems, aren't we?
And I did just want to clarify, those two positions that we have open are forensic scientist positions that we are planning. We are actively working on filling those.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator. Senator King. Just kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was very kind. So we know that Arkansas has.
I was only trying to be fair to Senator Love. Okay, that was it.
We know that Arkansas has been experiencing high crime, whether it's up right now, neutral, down a little bit. We know that we have too high of a crime rate. And so we also know that there's a direct correlation between the certainty of arrest and driving down crime. We passed, of course, the Protect Arkansas Act earlier, or last year rather, because we know we need to help our law enforcement do their job. So my question is, do we anticipate this crime lab will help bolster our law enforcement and lead to a greater certainty of arrest, which hopefully then in turn will drive down crime?
Hi, thank you for that question. I think our job at the crime lab is based on delivering excellent forensic sciences results. And so I'll speak to the new crime lab building. I think that is one piece to the puzzle. As Senator Chesterfield mentioned, there are other pieces to the puzzle to include how we can attract, recruit, and retain excellent forensic scientists. But to answer your question, the building will allow us to help attract qualified, excellent forensic sciences so that way we can provide those meaningful results based on science, with national standards and more efficiently so that our stakeholders, including law enforcement, can have those results and take whatever action they need to continue their process.
Thank you.
Senator, if I could follow up on that. We have a systemic issue right now in our criminal justice system, and with our partners, everyone that's going to be represented at the table today, with all the agencies that comprise DPS, they do an outstanding job, and luckily they work with the servants hard, and it's not for financial reasons, as Senator Chesterfield has pointed out. Having said that, the certainty of arrest is part of the issue, but also there needs to be a certainty of punishment, and it's more than just the certainty of arrest. There, the entire adjudication process is going to have to be looked at, because if people don't realize that there is an actual tangible punishment, then arresting them is only part of the problem. So and it goes back to bed space in the prisons, down to what the prosecutors can pursue. If we frequently will charge people with felony offenses, and those offenses are then kind of reduced down to misdemeanor offenses because they simply don't have a place to house that person once that they're convicted. So it becomes more of an issue that the Department of Public Safety can address because as our mayor in Little Rock said recently, we don't have an arresting problem, we have an adjudication problem, and that's where I think is going to have to be. It's a systemic approach that we're going to have to reform to be able to truly drive the crime rate down, because there has to be a known consequence, and they have to believe there's a consequence for the crimes they're committing.
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't think Senator Tucker's here today, but there is some. I think we've got. Well, you might want to, if you can. I mean, I think there's some things we'll consider during session. I think we already passed the bill. It does not have funding, but there may be some ways that we can help coordinate efforts as far as arrest and prioritize some of those more violent offenses for arrest. But anyway, Senator Tucker, I didn't see behind the deal there, but if you want to comment on that, I think it's pertinent to Senator Davis's question.
I like to stay incognito back here.
I prefer behind the pillar myself.
No, I think Senator Davis is exactly right. And as we've discussed over the last year, certainty of arrest is one of the most important elements of reducing crime. If offenders think they're going to get away with something, then what incentive do they have to obey the law? So what we found last year when we were doing this research is that the most recent year for which we had data, 2023, only 38% of reported violent offenses led to an arrest. And that's just something that I think as a state we really need to work on, and we need to do better to support law enforcement, to put law enforcement in the position of making the arrest. So we passed a piece of legislation last year that created a grant fund with the Department of Public Safety, and I think it's important for us to put some money into that fund, which we haven't done yet. And that would be that fund would provide grants to local law enforcement agencies to increase their clearance rates, which is another term for arrest rates. And this program has worked in other states, so I hope it's something that we'll take a hard look at and try to get some money into. If we're serious about reducing crime in Arkansas, which I believe we are, then it's important, I think, to do what we can to increase the clearance rate, because the certainty of arrest, as Senator Davis said, is so important. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me chime in.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, Senator Petty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is probably a little more long-term like Senator Johnson's, but one of the comments that I've had with our law enforcement, locally, I've been hiding from her or behind her all week, so she's now revealed me. Local law enforcement, and just observation myself, is dealing with Northwest Arkansas and other potential satellite crime labs. Some of the additional cost, if you're in Northwest Arkansas, comes into play. And so my question is this. I understand that the Northwest Arkansas crime lab is overfull. It's like busting at the seams in terms of capacity and what they can do. Is that true? And then I have another question about, and I'll go ahead and ask it now, and you can answer both. Is part of your expansion discussion expanding that, or maybe adding another satellite like in Jonesboro or somewhere else in the state?
Thanks, Senator Petty. Actually, my deputy director, Jennifer Beatty West, and I were just at Lowell Lab, our satellite lab in Northwest Arkansas earlier this week. And I'm pleased to share that right now we do have the appropriate amount of space at Lowell. And we believe that focusing on the crime lab here in Little Rock and this opportunity to build a new crime lab for decades to come, we feel that we can, by focusing on this and continuing our partnerships with our team in Lowell, as well as we have a team at Hope, we feel that we are well positioned to continuing our ability to deliver excellent forensic science services. So in the end, we are doing well at our Lowell and Hope sites, and we are excited with all of your support to continue our focus here on building this excellent crime lab in Little Rock. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Senator Hammer.
Thank you. I want to go back to the reduction in the numbers, and it was over the last year that you've had that significant drop. Is that correct?
Is this in regards to the sexual assault kits?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So it takes you a year to train someone in that area. Is that what you testified to a while ago?
I'm going to step out and let Jennifer Beatty West answer that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, so to have that significant of a drop in a year's time, did you already have people trained, ready to go, or did you hire people that were already trained and ready to go? What attributed to that drop?
Yes, sir. So a couple of things. One, we did have some additional analysts come off training that assisted with that. But we were also received funding from the Attorney General's office that allowed us to outsource sexual assault kits to private laboratories that we had contracts with. And that helped us significantly reduce that kit turnaround time and backlog.
So moving forward then, if you outsource the contract, moving forward, in order to get it down to what would be a goal of 30 days, do you have in your budget what you need in order to do that, or are you going to be dependent upon additional funding from the Attorney General's office to continue that contract?
At this time, we were also provided additional staffing, and we're in the final stages of training that staffing. So I'm sorry, I'm going to back up a second. So we had the funding to outsource, but then we were also granted funding to hire an additional 5 DNA analysts, maybe 6 additional DNA analysts. And with that, the goal was that with that additional staffing, we should be able to maintain get to the 60-day turnaround time and maintain and reduce the 60-day turnaround time.
And would you expect that to happen in the next year before we come into general session?
Our goal is that by 2025, we are hitting the 60-day turnaround time.
And then the last question is this: getting it done and getting it done quickly is great, but that prosecutor being able to go into the courtroom and do what they have to do is the most critical component, in my opinion. With the accelerated drop in the number of cases using an outside contractor, are you seeing anything that would indicate that the quality is not there, that is costing us convictions in the courtroom?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of. So one of the things that we do have to take into consideration is once a kit is processed, it doesn't mean that's all that will be done. There are times that additional evidence such as clothing items or other outside items are collected beyond the kit. If the kit does not yield positive results or helpful results, our staff will go on to additional evidence to try and see if they're able to find probative information to that case. So with that, just because a kit is negative, if there is additional evidence out there, we do process it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for the work you do in that area too.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think that concludes our questions for the crime lab. I think what you've just, Senator Flowers, it's too quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little concerned about what the conversation was concerning these arrests, and that it's going to all of a sudden give us a magic state with less crime. You have to have a conviction. You just don't arrest somebody and sentence them. They have a right to due process. I appreciate the Commander, Commissioner, Secretary Hager, that you spoke about adjudication. And I think we need to not overlook what our courts and our prosecutors are bringing before the courts. Because there are cases that are just lingering back from 2021. And that's personal to me because I had a nephew that was killed, murdered in 2021. The defendant, the accused, was arrested within months, still sitting in the county jail waiting on trial. Now, something is wrong with the prosecutors. that are holding these cases, not giving the defense discoverable material, which results in continuations. So you end up just ignoring what speedy trial means. And if the person, even in that instance, is found guilty, he's lingering in jail, in a county jail, waiting trial. If he is convicted, by the time he's convicted, if he is, he'll be walking out of jail. So we need to consider things like that. And we need to consider the age and youthfulness of some of these offenders that we're putting in the juvenile facilities that are coming out of school, even being referred from their schools to juvenile. Not for delinquent matters, but truancy. Other things that happen at school that kids, normally when I was a kid, happened. We didn't have juvenile detentions housing all these kids and then ultimately sending them on to adult penitentiaries. And we don't have to have that. But we need to start looking at things that are in the middle, not just the crime was committed, then go to jail. There is a process, and it's about justice. And I think we need to remember that when we want to talk about putting people in jail for a long time. Not getting any better. Not considering any families that are affected. Victims' families. Defendants' families. And all that stuff matters. That stuff that's in between. And we need to be a little bit more cognizant of those facts. And I thank you, Secretary Hager, for talking and even speaking the word adjudication. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Members, I don't see any other questions or comments. We got a motion for an executive rec. We've got a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Division of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 320, you'll find the Department of Appropriation Summary for the Division of Emergency Management. There are no significant change levels to this appropriation, but there are two I'd like to go over. The first being on page 339. So Act 841 of 2023 created the Office of Fire Protection Services within the Division of Emergency Management. This appropriation was formed by moving over 2 licensed architects and 2 fire marshals from the Division of State Police and their associated appropriation. The next appropriation is on page 341, and that's where you'll find a $30,000 appropriation previously in DPS shared services, and this is for fire protection grants. Mr. Chair, there are no further changes to this, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Representative Kavanaugh, if your question for the staff or agency.
Agency.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a real quick question. It's going to be on page 347, which is the Arkansas Public Safety Trust Fund. I noticed that we're actually, looks like we're generating more than we're spending on that. And this is just information, if you don't mind, if you could just get to staff and get it turned in to us. Can we just kind of look at that? If I'm not mistaken, this is the money that we're getting from the telephones, the $1.30 that we're getting from the telephone lines that we passed, in 19 or something like that. Can we just do an evaluation to see how much money you're actually getting from that? If you can give me that information, say from 19 till 23, what we were actually getting on that and how much we were actually spending. That's really kind of all I would like to know on that.
Yes, ma'am. And, I'm A.J. Gary, Director of the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management. And as you know, on that trust fund, it goes through the Department of Emergency Management,
Yes.
and that money is pushed out. So everything that is brought in is pushed out. But we can get you exact information for those years, what was brought in and how much was going out.
Yes,
But
because when we set that up, we didn't know if the 130 was correct or not correct, and that's really kind of what I want to look at is, are we at the right number that we need to be at? That's kind of what I want to kind of figure out.
yes, ma'am, we can get that to you.
I appreciate that. And on page 357, I just want to verify, that's that levy mitigation cash fund. I think our fund balance is down to $3,200 in that. And I just wanted to verify y'all are okay to reduce that appropriation to $250,000.
That is correct, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And Mr. Chair, I'll have a motion at the proper time.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. Representative Rose, you have a question?
Yes, sir.
You're recognized.
Thank you. I had a similar question to Representative Kavanaugh. I was kind of doing a deep dive on that Arkansas Public Safety Trust Fund funding. And I see the inter and intra-agency fund transfers. I understand, I think 250,000 of that went to 911 training. And there's the interagency that was $8.168 million. Looked like 168,000 went to the safety trust admin. And then there was the additional $8 million. If I understand correctly, it goes to, if you look at page 351, it goes to the Arkansas Wireless Information Network. And so in line with what Representative Kavanaugh was asking, with excess funds, are we taking too much? It looked like in that wireless network budget, you had excess appropriation of about $3.4 million. And I understood you to say that it was all being pushed out. But I believe that's 10% tax on prepaid phones and $1.30 per month per mobile phone for users. And so $3.4 million kind of spreads out quite a bit as far as taxes on Arkansans. And so I'm curious if we are planning in future years to have $3.4 million in excess spending, do you need that? Or is that something that we can return back to Arkansas taxpayers?
So that's on the specific appropriations. So as you know, this has only been running for just a couple of years, 4 years, since 2019. So we could look at that and figure out what the average is to see if, because when that appropriations was first put in, we didn't know exactly how much would be collected. So we could certainly look at that and over a period of time, that appropriation piece could be possibly be adjusted. But again, all the money that comes in is going out. So there's not excess money sitting there, the money itself that's not being pushed out to the PSAPs to run the local 911 centers. And the $8 million for AWIN is used for the large upgrade, the bond that is upgrading the A1 system throughout the state.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I also see that the excess appropriation decreased by about $2 million from 22-23 to 23-24. And no disrespect, but I understand, if we put money there, it'll be found ways to be used. But I'd like to think that maybe our taxpayers could use that money better themselves. So if there's a way for us to look at this and say, maybe we're appropriating too much or maybe we're taxing too much, that we could just look at that.
Certainly, we can look at the appropriations, and if appropriations needs to be adjusted. I will tell you that even with the increase in money going out to the 911 centers, I'm sure the counties and cities, they're still having to make up that difference to fund those centers. So actually reducing the money, I think that would be dangerous, but we could certainly look at the appropriations piece.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Senator Hammer. All right, need somebody to turn off the mic. There we go.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You had transferred to you, or the transfer of the fire protection service and all that took place during the last general session. Can you just update us on how that is going? And one of the things that was specific in that was that there would be someone that would help the volunteer fire departments, find and write grants for equipment. Can you just give us an update where we are in that, and is it working?
Yes, sir, and thank you for that question. So, as you know, we're still in the first year of that, transferring those duties and personnel over. I am happy to say that we're in the process of filling our last vacant position, and that is for the plan reviewer. We have the grants admin position that you're asking about, Senator. That person came on board probably a few weeks ago, so they're just now hitting the ground running. I'm meeting with this team actually the first of the week to get some really good updates and really start getting, now that we're fully staffed, start getting into what our future plans are for the fire services totally, and try to set up some plans for the next 5 years, 10 years, what we want that whole fire services to look like. But again, we do have that person in place that you're speaking about. And I think that's going to be very beneficial to our local fire departments to help assist them on those grants.
And how do you anticipate getting the word out to the volunteer fire departments? Will it be that person's duty, or do you have funding and resources in order to make sure that they know how to contact that individual?
Sure. So we're in the process of doing all that now. We're actually going to having her meet with them and talk to them. We've got the Fire Services Protection Board that's getting that information out. So we've met and discussed that. We're also doing some things with our public information media section to make sure that we're getting that word out. We have through the Act 833 funding, we have contacts with all of our fire departments. So that's very, if it hadn't been done already, it's in the process of being done to reach out to all of those fire departments.
Okay, last question. The state fire marshal has jurisdiction over the definition, interpretation of the definition of the safe room, correct? Is that of the safe rooms that the schools are expected to build? Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you anticipate any further adjustments to the interpretation that would help in the cost of the safe rooms that schools are expected to build, or we are where we are and we're not going to be able to get any further along in modifying that interpretation?
If I understand right, Senator, and I may have to get with him and get some better clarification, but as far as the safe rooms that's in the legislation, new schools being built, building onto those schools, that is what the code is, and that's what we're following.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Kavanaugh, I think you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to accept executive rec with the exception of Y88 levy mitigation cash on page 357. I'd like to reduce that to $250,000.
All right, members, we've heard a motion. We've got a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Senator Chesterfield.
Well, Mr. Chair, I wanted to ask a question, but I will yield to the motion. But I really did need to ask a question.
Okay. Do you mind if we take the motion and circle back?
No,
to you?
not
Okay.
at all. Thank you so
everybody
much.
just stay put for 1 second. We're going to we've got a motion. We've got a second. There is no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Senator Chesterfield, you are recognized for a question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. We had a 911 task force, and we found out that there was so much discrepancy among areas of the state as far as getting emergency information out. Have we done more to do that? Because we had people that were using technology from even during that time, 10, 15 years old. Are we doing better with that, or is that a part of DIS, or is that a part of your house?
So it's partially part of our agency. If you remember, Senator, under legislation, as the Director of Emergency Management, I chair the 911 board.
Yes.
We have done a lot of work in there. C.J. Engel is Executive Director of the 911 board. I will be glad to have him either sit down with you, or maybe we can have him come back at one of the committees and give a really good update on where we're at. But just real briefly, the ESI net throughout the state has increased. The consolidation piece of that is going very well, actually better than I anticipated that it would go. And with that will be those improved services. The training that KETS is working on for our 911 operators and dispatchers is really going to boost that. And so to answer your question, yes, we've come, I believe, a long ways. We still have a ways to go, but we are moving pretty good in that direction.
And that's good. One of the challenges, I chaired the 911 task force, and one of the challenges was we couldn't determine sometimes to what city the ping was supposed to go, or any of that. Have we done a better job of being able to assure the public that if you make the phone call, it's going to get to the right place so that we can have the right response? And I think that was a part of the problem that we were having.
Yes, and again, I would ask that we could have the executive director really give you a good brief. I don't want to say anything that's not 100% correct, but with everything that's being done, that is getting better.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Senator. All right, we're on to law enforcement standards and training.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Law Enforcement Standards and Training Division Appropriation Summary can be found on page 361 of your manuals. The executive recommendation for fiscal year 25 is $5,212,856 for this division. We'll touch on the operations budget because there are no other change levels. So on page 363, you'll find the main operations budget for KETS. And the total there for fiscal year 25 recommended is $4,212,464. Mr. Chair, there are no significant change levels to anything with this division. I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Senator Hammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is going to be on the fallen law enforcement officer fund, please. Would that be you, Colonel, that would handle that, or one of y'all might have to turn off your mic?
Yes, sir, that does fall under KETS. Director Chapman could probably speak more intelligently on that than I can.
Okay, the question is, I'm looking at the amount that's in it, and when an officer this is for officers killed in the line of duty, correct? And when officers killed in line of duty, they are able to receive money out of this, but are they able to, is the family able to receive funds from other sources as well, or is this it?
Thank you, sir. Chris Chapman, Director of Law Enforcement Standards and Training. So that fund is set up for immediate assistance, sir. It does not limit them from other resources for fallen officers, whether it be state benefits or federal benefits, sir. But we try to have that initial money to them within 24, 48 hours.
And the limit on that is it 5,000?
That is correct, sir.
We've had this discussion before, and fortunately, we're not having to use all the money in there, which is a good thing. Could we go in and move that up? And what would stop us, or what would be the resistance as far as practicality in not raising that to, say, 10,000? Because, you know, for funeral expenses or just the sheer shock of life, one situation I think in this past year, you know, an officer was killed in the line of duty, and the wife basically lost all the income. And if we're going to have consistency in carry forward money, what would be wrong with bumping that to $10,000?
Sir, in my opinion, there'd be nothing wrong with that. Being responsible for delivering those funds, I know how greatly they are appreciated by the families, and that immediate assistance is extremely important. With the cost of funerals and everything else that is associated with that traumatic event, I see nothing wrong with that if that's the legislative body's desire, sir.
Mr. Chairman, may I direct a question to the chair? Just for educational, is that something that we can adjust in here in the budget, special language, or is it going to require substantive language for general session?
Yeah, we can do an amendment during the session.
But so, during the general session?
We can do it fiscal also. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, we can do it. We can do it in the upcoming session.
Okay. I'd like to work with you to get that done, if you would. We'll get together offline, please.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair.
All right, General Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And kind of follow up on Senator Hammer's comment. So that was my bill. I believe that we're talking about the checkoff program and all that. And I thought we had placed the limit like at $15,000. And it was we determined that through the rules. That wasn't in statute, but we established that in the rules. Does that sound familiar with you, Colonel?
General, to be honest with you, I'm not sure. When was that legislation ran? Was it prior to?
There's two funds.
Instead of, and we don't, why don't, General Berry, can you get with Senator and y'all kind of talk about
Sure.
maybe what
Absolutely.
needs to happen or what's in place,
Yep.
and then circle back up with
Okay.
state police, and we can figure out what to do from there.
Th-
If there's anything that we need to do, it sounds like there may be the authority to do some things.
Thank you,
already.
Mr. Chairman.
All right. Senator Hammer, did you catch that? Okay, there may be already some increased ability that, through the legislation that was General Berry's legislation, so maybe y'all can talk offline and see what's actually available. You may be able to increase the cap without having to have anything happen, and that's from the sponsor of the bill, so maybe y'all can circle up on that. And then, do you have another question? Okay.
And maybe Representative Berry can clarify on this. God forbid there would be a multiple event that would occur, and if this is raised either through the legislation that exists or through legislation that would need to take place, would this be the time and the place that we would want to go in and raise the appropriation level in case there are multiple deaths that might occur? Because right now they're sitting at 50,000, and God forbid we were to have a situation where we hit the limit. Would it be better? I personally think it'd be better to go ahead and raise it. I'd just like to be educated from the chair as far as is that the best to do, or do you think with what he's got, we can do it?
I mean, we can do it one of two ways. They can come back and do a letter and request the increase after they're able to have a conversation about what's available or not, or we can do it today. I'm just not sure we have an educated, I mean, it's an appropriation. We can raise it to $1 million and it not make a difference so long as it's not funded or hopefully needed. But it'd be up to the body on what to do that. But it sounds like we've got some homework that we need to do. I'll maybe let you address that some.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just for clarification, General Berry, Senator Hammer, there's two funds. There's the Fallen Officer Fund, and then the $15,000 fund is for catastrophic illness, terminal type issues that the officer's able to apply for. So we have a line of duty death fund that we immediately give, and then the officers can request an additional $15,000 for terminal illness, cancer, catastrophic events. So there's actually two separate funds. One's limited at $5,000, the other is at $15,000, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is the one that's limited to 5,000. The other one is at 15, right?
Yes, sir. The line of duty death is limited to 5,000. The catastrophic illness fund is 15,000, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'll get with General Berry afterwards, and before we get out of fiscal, we'll get it worked out.
Yeah, and we can make some changes if we need to when we get back in session, and then increase that appropriation level if we need to.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thanks. Members, do we have any other questions? No, we don't. Motion executive rec. We've got a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Division of State Police.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll find the Division of State Police Division Summary on page 376 of your manuals. The total for this division for fiscal year 25 recommended is $155,889,270. The operations appropriation for state police is on page 387 of your manuals. The total there is $121,569,825. The only real movement here is those 4 positions that got moved to create the Office of Fire Protection Services. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, there are no significant changes to the Division of Arkansas State Police.
All right, thank you. Representative Rose.
Just a quick question. Under the Homeland Security federal section, page 383, I noticed there was a significant difference in the capital outlay funding. I see that there is a notation that there was a transfer from miscellaneous funding grant. I was just curious if you could talk about what was purchased. Was it equipment? And is that something that you will need to do again, since we only are, appropriating about half of what you had to spend in the previous year?
Representative, these are grants from Adam to state police, And it's mostly just one-time purchases of equipment. I know in the past we bought drones, and we just get the funding as it's needed.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Chesterfield.
Motion at the proper time, Mr. Chair.
All right. I'll come back to you. Representative Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a real quick question. On 385, which is the automated fingerprint identification system, what is that actually, the funds actually used for? I know where it's generated from, but what are we using that money for? Sorry, I sprung that one on you. I appreciate you.
No, that's fine. That question is so simple. I'm going to allow our deputy director to answer
Okay,
that. So.
thank you.
Morning, Senator. My name is Mike Kitty. I'm Deputy Director of Administrative Operations. To answer your question, it's used to run operations within the APHIS section itself, including salaries over there that pay the salaries of those employees.
Okay, I just noticed we got a fund balance, and you're going to be using that fund balance.
We've done some things that the previous administration did for some reason was reluctant to spend. We spent that balance down from its previous $14.5 million down to about $11.5 million.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
All right, Senator Chesterfield, if you can hit your mic.
I move executive rec.
We've got a motion for executive rec. We've got a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. That brings us to the Department of Health. Before we get there, we'll let everybody trade out. Thank you all for your time today. There was a question earlier about corrections, what we've done to set aside for prison construction. We were kind of all over the place trying to remember if we'd released some, not released some. And so staff, Wendy in particular, had went back and figured this out for us. There was $75 million that was set aside for the Calico Rock. As we know, that's not moving forward. I think that was determined in the last administration. Of that $75 million, it was released, so it's sitting in a debt fund, and they've spent about $137,000 of that, which I think was the study that was done to kind of prove out that maybe Calico Rock wasn't the place to try to expand. And so there's $75 million set aside right now for that can be used for construction. In addition, we did a restricted reserve set aside for $300 million. So it's just shy of $375 million that is in holding, waiting for the construction of prison. We were kind of, like I said, trying to jump around and recall on that earlier in the week, and those are the actual numbers. So with that, I think we've got everybody in place, and we'll turn it over to Ms. Mildred. Are you ready? Or do y'all want to do a quick presentation first? Just a couple statements.
Few remarks, if
All
that's
right,
okay.
yeah, if you could just recognize yourself for the committee, and you're welcome to move forward.
Renee Mallory, Secretary of Health, Department of Health. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We come to you this morning with no request for an increase in our budget, so hopefully that's good news. We can do this because we've pursued federal grants, and so we use federal dollars for a lot of our programs. In FY15, state general revenue was 20% of our budget. Today, it's 15%. So, you know, keeping our SGR under control, we've also been able to cut some fees in some of our occupational programs, as I'm sure y'all are aware. But one more area I want to mention is our number of field positions. In January of 23, we had 2,049 positions filled, and as of Monday, this past Monday, we had 1,958, which is a 4.4 decrease, percent decrease. With me today, I've got our Chief of Staff, our Deputy Director of Programs, and our CFO at the table. I've also got members of our staff in the audience, so hopefully we can answer any questions that y'all have. And with that, I will close my remarks, and we're open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, right here. Just, I do have a couple questions. Topics of interest, maternal health, there was a governor's press conference. Just want to make sure that's an important issue to me. I want to make sure you feel like you have the resources you need to do in your office, to do the communicating, coordinating, et cetera.
I think we do at this point, Senator Boyd. You know, we're going to do a media campaign. Hopefully, we can use some of our tobacco funding to do that. Our grassroots effort, for those of you who heard me speak this week, we're going to try to do a grassroots effort starting out in 5 of our counties with our local health units, local officials, local stakeholders to cut down on our number of mothers who don't get prenatal care. So that's where we're going to start. I think we've got the funding for that right now. Futuristically, we'll see where our gaps are and where we need funding. But we're also going to try to use private public partnerships to help with that. So we'll see where we go with it.
Mr. Chair, two other quick questions with your permission. So the next one, October 4th, 2023, there was a case of malaria in Arkansas. Do you have what you need for, you know, surveillance and detection and such?
I think we do. You know, we get federal dollars for infectious diseases. You know, when a new disease emerges, we usually get extra funding from the feds for that. So I think we're ready for something to come. But for malaria specifically, we have that.
Okay, and then final question for me that I know of at this point. So this legislature passed legislation that requires when a pharmacist, quote, prescribes oral contraceptives to be reported to the Department of Health. So do you know if you had a lot of reports, and if so, do you do anything with those reports, or do they just get collected and added to bureaucracy?
I don't know the answer to that. We can get you those numbers and tell you what we do with those reports.
All right, thank you. Senator Pinzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I?
Yes, sir.
All right. So on page 410, your operations paying account, looking through that, your operating expenses line item is, or budget request is a little bit higher than what your expenses have been in the last couple, or at least the actual expense last year. And then also dropping down to the infectious disease testing line item, seems to be a huge difference between what your agency is requesting and what the legislative or executive rec is. Why the large disparity between those two numbers?
Yes, sir. We expected that question, and I'll let our Chief of Staff and our CFO answer.
Don Adams, Chief of Staff, Department of Health. So most of this discrepancy between what the agency requested and what the legislative and executive recommendations are from MFGs that we have received over the last few years, particularly those during the response. Many of those are multiple year grants designed to be spent over multiple years. They have expanded the scope to more general infectious disease control and some IT modernization. And so the addition of those MFGs into our appropriations bill is why you see those differences.
But it's over $100 million.
Yes, we received about $600 million in pandemic response funds throughout the pandemic. We've spent, of course, a lot of that, but a lot of it we still have. And so instead of carrying that from one year to next as an MFG, if it's multiple years, they will include it into our appropriations bill.
Okay, so which do you need, though? The agency request or the executive rec?
Well, with the executive rec, because the agency request was without those MFGs in our appropriations bill. But through a series of DFA is required to incorporate those, include those into if they go for more than a year. So since we will not have those MFG appropriations to spend those funds, we need general appropriations to spend them.
So you anticipate spending over the $91 million you'd requested in the next fiscal year?
Yes, and I've been reminded that the request that the agency made was in 22 as well during the preparations for the biennial.
Okay.
That's not a recent request.
Okay, thank you. That
Yes.
that clears it up.
Yes, sir.
All right, Representative Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Mallory, thank you, Secretary Mallory. And I'm, as a nurse, am excited to have you as the head of the department, so thank you very much. I, too, am interested in the maternal and beyond that, the early childhood development. And with with DHS moving to, or with the early childhood moving to Department of Ed, how can y'all collaborate so that we are making certain that those early childhood programs in the health department are also working together and not siloed from those other programs?
So I'll answer that really generally. You know, we have a cabinet now that actually we get together quite often. We talk all the time. We are a close group, and that's helping break down silos that, you know, I can remember, you know, not being a secretary, but just that we didn't talk to other agencies. But now, I mean, our chiefs of staff talk. The secretaries talk. I mean, we're a pretty close-knit group. So I think that helps in what you're talking about, and we'll keep that at the forefront.
Great. Well, I don't want, as we're talking maternal, I don't want to forget about the infant and child development, that 0 to 3. So just if you'll keep us posted and let us know how the funding and which of those programs are reflected in the funding so that we can make sure that we're taking care of that.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Wardlaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Representative Gardner's questions because it's in line with what I was going to ask. Came to my attention in the last few months, certain provider groups license with you guys, and then they have to register at DHS. And not only do they have to send those forms to you and then they get a certificate, you have to resubmit all those forms again over to DHS. That's ridiculous. And there's a silo that exists there, and there's no communication between the two. And I don't know what it's going to take. I don't understand all of it a lot of times, but government's government, and you're both owned by the state of Arkansas. There ought to be communication between the two. And I know Secretary Putton has agreed with me she was going to get with you and try to figure that out. But and I appreciate you guys working on the background checks and all the stuff you're doing. You've really been awesome over there, and I appreciate that. But these silos have to be broken down, and these things have to be fixed because it's very encompassing on providers and citizens to have to do this stuff over at your house and then have to come downtown to do it at DHS. So whatever we got to do, I'd like to see a movement to fix that.
Yes, sir. And just to your point, 30 minutes, probably within 30 minutes after you talked to Secretary Putnam yesterday, she had put in a call to me and we had talked about this issue. So we're already looking at the issue you're talking about.
All right, thank you. Representative Lundstrom.
Yes, there was a, I'm sorry, over here. There was a report of tuberculosis in Northwest Arkansas at Harbor High School. Can you catch me up on that? What are we doing to address that?
Casey Cochran, Deputy Director for Programs. Yes, ma'am, we are working on that case as well as some others in that part of the state. So there are ongoing investigations surrounding that in order to do proper testing and treatment and identification of disease.
Follow up. 2 questions. How many others and where did that come from?
So the number right now is still undetermined because of the investigation side of it and the contacts. So that's ongoing and the testing that's required to determine that. As far as the origin, I don't have that with me, but I'll be glad to get you a report of
Okay,
where
I'd
we
like
are.
to have both if I could.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Will do.
All right, thank you. Representative Rose.
Sir, thank you. 2 questions, 2 different areas here. And if you don't have this off the top of your head, that's fine. I'd be just happy to get it by email. But the breast care program, with the steep increase in breast cancer diagnosis, especially women under 50. I just noticed that from last year to this future year, there's no change. I understand that's an important approach to not increase your budget. But I was just curious if I could get a breakdown for that, and if you do see a need for additional funding for an area that's increasing in diagnoses.
Yes, thank you for the question. This program, these particular funds are primarily driven by provider reimbursement for our women that are breast care clients. So women of a certain age that are uninsured or underinsured, they're allowed to go to our breast care providers, and then we reimburse them for those visits. So this can fluctuate from year to year based on the demand and the uninsured rate and those sorts of things. So we have, at least in 23, we did spend under our appropriations level, but that can change from year to year. And we put different amounts of money in that program kind of based on that demand that we see. So we have some internal flexibility to, at least from a funding source standpoint, to provide more funding if we see there is greater need.
Would it be possible to get a breakdown of the funding, but also the qualifications for what you determine to be underinsured or uninsured? I'd be very interested. I just know of different families who've had to host fundraisers for cost of surgeries and treatments, and I think that information, we should make that more available.
We have all that information, and we will get it to you.
Thank you. Second question, page 417. I was just curious if you could address the intra and interagency transfers, just where that money has come from. Down there towards the bottom under funding sources for 23-24 and 24-25, there's an interagency fund transfer of $900,000 and an intra-agency fund transfer of $675,000. I just, looking through here, I couldn't pick out where it came from.
Yes, sir. So those are funds from the tobacco program that go to other areas. So that 675 intra-agency goes to the breast care program.
Okay.
And then the 900,000, and I'll have my CFO correct me if I say something wrong, I believe goes to two agencies, the Department of Education and then Parks, Heritage, and Tourism for some health initiatives that we have, collaboration we have with them.
Would it be possible to get me a breakdown of that as well, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. One thing, because I think we moved from, to y'all's credit, you're actually asking questions on the appropriations now, but we didn't allow our staff to present. So what my thought was, we were going to let them present, and then we would circle back and let y'all have chances to ask non-appropriation questions. But again, to your credit, you're doing what we're here to do. So if you can you give your quick summary, and then we'll move on into the appropriations. So, but well done, committee. All right.
Good morning, members. Good morning, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
We hadn't asked a question on appropriation all morning long, and then suddenly.
But honestly, the presentation that the department gave is essentially what needed to happen this morning. There are very, very insignificant changes from fiscal year 24 going into 25. So most of my presentation would have been letting you know that the appropriations are basically flat with no significant changes. There's only one appropriation that probably did have changes. It was for the credentialing committee that is further along on the agenda. And it was just to let Senator Hammer know that now that appropriation does have a source of funding where it did not before. It was a transfer of $350,000 from the rainy day fund. But other than that, they have, as usual, done an excellent job. So thank you for coming. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mildred. All right, Representative Kavanaugh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to say thank you for looking at the tobacco prevention fund. As you're probably aware of, last session, I tried to get $5 million out of it to go to maternal health because I believe that's one of the most important things that we could do with that money, but it didn't go anywhere. So I really do appreciate you looking to do that because that is an opportunity. We have these funds sitting there and they're not being used and we have a major problem. So I appreciate your willingness to look at that opportunity that we have there. And any way I can assist you in that, I'll be glad to do so. The one thing I do want to ask you about is on the WIC appropriation. I think we've already spoken about this, that we actually do have an over appropriation based on what your expected funding is going to be. And I just want to make sure that y'all are okay to go ahead and reduce that appropriation to 55 million rather than the 75.
Representative Kavanaugh, just to add a little detail and from our previous discussion, we do get about 65 million in funding for our WIC food instruments. We did not certify all our funding, so you don't see it all in the funding source. Typically, we have not spent that much because our caseload is not high enough to spend all that. Now, food prices are going up, so we do anticipate some increase, but historically, we've been spending around $45 to $50 million in this fund center. And we don't have a fund balance. So the federal government sweeps anything we don't spend. So I do think we would be safe to lower it. I would be more comfortable with 60 if you're in agreement to that.
That's
that
fine.
gives us
Yes.
a little cushion in case our caseload
Right.
increases.
And I agree. Food
yes,
is
but I do think we're over appropriated right now.
okay. I appreciate that. And one other real quick question. I think we talked about the infectious disease because when you look at that appropriation, it looks like it's really over. But what we've really done is combined a lot of different things in that area. And that is correct, right?
That is correct. So it is in a category 51, which is miscellaneous. It's called infectious disease testing, I think. That's a little bit of a misnomer. I've talked to DFA about maybe changing that. It's more of a catch-all for infectious disease control and efforts in general.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
One final question. On the page 423, the full independent practice credentialing, is that being utilized?
Yes, ma'am. We've had about approaching 600 applications. We've approved around 500 of those. Right now, we're using staff from the nursing board and medical board to assist with managing this committee. We are talking, and so we hadn't had any expenses yet. We are talking about maybe transferring them some funding for the effort they're providing and supporting that committee. But yes, that committee is meeting regularly, reviewing applications, and we have approved several of the applications.
Okay, I appreciate that. And Mr. Chair, I'll have a motion at the proper time.
All right, I'll circle back up with you. Senator Chesterfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I keep hearing the conversation about WIC being diminished, or the funding being diminished, and we talk about maternal health. Perhaps I'm suffering from the woe-begotten impression that they're inextricably intertwined. Explain to me why we can reduce WIC funding without it having a deleterious impact on maternal health.
Yes, ma'am. Good question. So what we're talking about is just reducing the appropriation,
The appropriation.
not the
I know it's
funding.
not the funding.
You're right. So
But
we still have the funding.
Okay.
We still will have more appropriation than we have historically spent.
Okay.
And we can always come back and ask for more if we see we're going to exceed that.
Okay. So we're merely, and I know we're talking about appropriations, it's just that it was a clang for me because
Yes, ma'am.
of my belief that they are inextricably intertwined.
Right.
Thank you so much.
All right, Senator Hammer.
Thank you. Picking up the conversation on full independent practice credentialing, can you tell us how many to date have been certified? And the reason I'm asking that is it ties into the budget is because we're charging a fee. If I've got it right, this fund exists by the fees that are collected, and I wonder if it's appropriate to have that discussion about reducing the fee at this time.
Yes, sir, Senator Hammer. We have approved specifically 478 applications, and we have discussed reducing fees. I think right now, we're not really sure what their expenses. This is fairly new. We're not really sure what their expenses are going to be moving forward, and we do either need to hire someone to support this committee or reimburse or split fund some of the people that are currently supporting the committee. So if once we do that, we see we have excess funds, we will definitely look at reducing fees. We've been very progressive with reducing fees in our agency.
Okay, and there was 478. Did you say approved?
Approved.
How many applied?
588. So some of those are pending, and if they don't have all their information, we'll send it back and ask for more information. So there's always a little bit in the churn, but we have approved 478 out of 588.
And I forgot what the fee is we're charging.
$50 for the renewal. I think it's $150 for the initial application and certification.
If we could, we'll just watch that between now and the general session, see how it flows out and levels out. Maybe in the general session, we can come back and look at reducing that.
Yes, sir.
After you
We
get the
agree.
staffing. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Kavanaugh, you're recognized for motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion to accept executive rec with the exception on V72 WIC food instruments, page 421, to reduce that appropriation to $60 million from the $75 million.
All right, thank you. Members, you've heard the motion. We've got a second. Any discussion on the motion? I've got a question or discussion?
For the maker.
Okay.
Question for the maker through the chair. Representative Kavanaugh, how did you arrive at the reduction of 15?
I think it was discussion that they were just having about reducing to 15, and that was the amount he was comfortable with.
Excuse me, sir.
I think that was the recommendation by the agency that,
Okay.
that they were able to.
So that is when we started talking about the WIC appropriation, that they felt it could be reduced, and I'm trying to get to why 15 million. What constituted that particular number? Was that because that's what you spent the last time, or predicated on a rolling number? How do we get to the 15?
Yes, based on historical spending. If we reduce,
Over how many years?
I would say the last 5 years.
Okay, so
Yes.
the agency's fine with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Y'all just don't feel like fighting, is that what it is?
No, I really think.
Just
No.
want to know. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That answers my question.
All right, thank you. Members, we've got a motion. We've got a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. All right, members, I think that pretty much wraps us up for today. I do want to circle back one more time because I wanted to confuse all of y'all just a little bit further on the prisons. It's actually $330 million in the restricted reserve, so it's about $405 million that's actually set aside for construction. So, all right, thank you all, and appreciate your diligence in getting through this week. We're adjourned.